like open, and so it kind of gets metally, but it's fine.
So I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I thought it was one of the kids.
Oh, actually, it is my daughter or my child. So
But like, I understand too.
I just know that when I get nervous, I get thirsty. So get thirsty when I'm talking. Lights, you know?
Lights are your
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of, yeah. You know,
Great.
Thank you. You, Zara?
Yes, I'm Zara.
Benjamin.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for making it.
Of course, yeah.
How are you?
Very soft, kind of, but it's still like really like.
You think?
Yeah, sit here.
Yes.
Although I just it's like it's an acquired taste.
I saw that too. Hi. Hey, Ben. How are you? Good, thank you.
What it is about it, but it's kind of hard to, I would say.
There.
Yeah.
We're going first.
There's like
Yeah. I get to listen to you. That's true.
Yep.
Yeah, we're passing mics again. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you guys got 3 people for mic.
The lights are awesome.
Yeah, the lights are really bright. I guess, hey, but you know what? It's illuminating. Am I? Can you hear me? No.
Okay, now they can.
Okay. Great. If the candidates in the first round. Okay. If the candidates in the first round could please take their seats. Thank you. Oh,
And if you are part of the forum and you have your cell phone on you, you're encouraged to put it in the phone caddy. There's a name tag with your name on it.
that's what we do here at NHS. We put our phones in the caddy. Oh, my bad. I didn't see the signs. Okay. Yeah, I want.
You want me to go, tell people
Yep.
outside to
Yeah.
come in?
Yes, please.
All right, so they'll wait like 2 minutes?
Yep. We'll see. What? Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NHS Auditorium. My name is Zara Usman, and I'm the president of the Student Union here at NHS. Oh, thank you. We are a group of 16, 4 elected from each grade with the purpose of representing the student body to our administration and elected officials. I am so excited for tonight, but I'd like to give a few thank yous and explain the decorum before we get started. Thank you first and foremost to our candidates. We invited mayoral, at-large, and ballot-contested school committee positions. We are so thrilled that everyone was able to make it. Thank you to Northampton Open Media for live streaming and recording this. Sue Sullivan, our Student Union faculty advisor, and my fellow Student Union reps, especially Nadia, my vice president. We've been there every step of the way. And thank you to our principal, Ben Taglieri, for working with us throughout the summer to make this happen. We appreciate you so much. Now to talk a little bit about the format. Mayoral candidates will be answering questions throughout the night. School committee candidates will be with them until around 7:15, at which point we will take an intermission until 7:45. Then city council candidates will take their time until we end. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions, and they'll be given 30-second and 10-second reminders. And the mic is going to snake back and forth, so starting with Gina Louise, and then moving to Anat, and then Anat is going to answer the next question, and then it'll move back. And if you cannot turn off your mics between, just don't turn the mic off, because they got it back there. If candidates extend past their time, I'm going to start banging my gavel, which will be unfortunate for everyone. And I love banging my gavel, so believe me, I will bang my gavel. Candidates should not address each other directly or interrupt each other, and there will not be time to rebuttal. For the audience, please hold your applause until the end of the section. Student union members are going to take turns asking questions that we as a union developed with the input of the student body. Last year, I knew this election was going to be big, and I wanted to make sure our voices were heard. This idea started in a different form, but then one of my favorite teachers suggested something like this, and I ran with it. Thank you to him, Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Taglieri, and of course, the union. We have all put in countless hours of the summer and in the busiest time of the year, the beginning. And on that note, let's get started with the first question for mayoral and school committee candidates. Okay, starting off nice and easy. Introduce yourself. What's your motivation for running for mayor and school committee? And we're going to start with Gina Louise.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gina Louise Shara. I'm the mayor of Northampton, the chair of the Northampton School Committee, and a trustee of our other district, Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School. Thank you to the Student Union for organizing this forum. In early June, I said that a series of forums would be really great for the community, and the Student Union was the very first to stand up and say they would do it, so thank you. I have served the city for nearly 12 years. Before being elected mayor, I was on the city council for 8 years and was unanimously elected council president in my final term. Over these last 12 years, I've worked with NHS students on many initiatives, and I am forever in awe of their leadership, their insightfulness, and their depth of knowledge. There are many things we've worked on as a community in my first term. There have been hard and painful conversations, and I'm also extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish together, despite the challenges and the changing landscape. So it's been the greatest privilege of my life to serve Northampton, Florence, and Leeds, and my sense of responsibility and love for the city has never been stronger. As we face a horrifying national moment, the stakes are just so high. We need to come together and support each other, and I will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with our stalwart state and federal leaders and all of you for this beautiful community. Just in time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jillian Duclos, and I am running for mayor because I believe in investing in our future. To me, that means ensuring every child receives the education they deserve, no matter their circumstance. And as I've knocked on doors, I realize that what ties us together is our commitment to fighting for public education. I've met grandparents who moved here to be close to their grandchildren who worry their futures are not being prioritized. I have met parents who are products of public education, like me, who never thought they'd have to move their children to another school because their needs are not being met. And I have met parents who can't afford to supplement the loss of support their child needs as we continue to cut services for our most vulnerable students. And I have met educators who understand the long-term consequences our children face if we continue to divest in public education. It is clear this is not the direction our community wants to go, and as your mayor, I will stand up for our children by ensuring we set them up for success. Thank you.
I'm very intimidated by the clock. I'm I'm Tiffany Jewell. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an educator and I've been teaching in the Valley for 20 years. Thanks to NEF grants, I had the opportunity to work in all of our elementary schools and JFK, working with the educators, working with the learners, collaborating with principals, and doing work on identity, justice, and activism. It was really exciting. I'm also a caregiver. I have 2 kids, one in JFK and one at JSS, and served on the JSS Council for 4 years. And I'm an author. I write books for kids on social justice issues, including the book, This Book is Anti-Racist, which a lot of our students have read in our schools. I'm running for school committee because I know our schools. I know the buildings. I know where all the adult bathrooms are in our elementary schools. And because I will represent the interest of the caregivers, the students, and the community. Also, I bring a perspective that we don't have in our school committee. I'm a Black biracial woman who grew up living in poverty and the daughter of an immigrant. So I'm running because I'm not new to this work and I can do it.
Hi, I'm Emily Seraphy Cox. I have a 9th grader who graduated from Bridge Street School and JFK. I have been a community organizer for over 20 years, organizing mostly with women of color to build power and realize justice together. I've been the Ward 3 school committee member for almost 6 years. When I first decided to run, I wanted to bring a fresh vision to Northampton Public Schools. I envisioned innovative and inclusive classrooms, innovative and inclusive curriculum, like dual immersion Spanish programs. I envisioned a district that funds fair wages to retain excellent educators and staff. During my time on school committee, I have made these my core priorities, and we've made some progress, but the work is not done. In fact, we're just getting started. Now we need to plan about how to keep salaries competitive and make critical investments in our district to ensure its success in the future and the success of the young people we serve.
Can we take this out of the holder? I'd first like to thank the Student Union for organizing this event and for leading by example. You make Northampton proud. I'm Robbie, and I'm running because public schools anchor a community, and I am deeply committed to quality public education for all in the very schools my parents, my children, and I attended. I used to sit in those seats out there for school assemblies. How we conduct ourselves on behalf of our children must be built into the very foundation of this next committee, so we can move forward as team members, problem solvers, innovators, and leaders in Western Mass. Change is inevitable, and change is good. I want Northampton to be at the forefront, learning from and using new best practices in the face of our challenges. I will not use fear or anger to activate and divide, but connection and purpose to inspire and unite. While challenging, this job should also be exciting, and that will be my approach.
Thank you for the Student Union for organizing this, and thank you for Principal Taglieri and Superintendent Bonner for being here tonight, and everybody else for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. I'm Angela Wack, and I'm running for school committee for Ward 2. I'm a teacher. I taught in elementary schools and tutored diverse students, both in person and online. I'm an advocate, having served for 9 years on the PTA of my children's elementary school in Florida, most of which were in elected positions. I'm in my 2nd year on the NHS School Council and the JFK PTO. I'm a parent of 3 children, 2 of whom are currently in NPS schools. We moved to Northampton in Massachusetts from Florida because the pandemic in Florida, as many of you probably know, was not the most interesting time, or was the most interesting, but was not the best time to be in Florida. And we decided we wanted to move to a state with our public education values. Massachusetts is renowned for public education, and that is what brought us here. I'll talk more later about what I would like to see for the district.
My name is Anat Weisenfreund. I'm since January, the current school committee member. Thank you so much for having us. I'm running to be elected in November because I know how important early experiences are in shaping our children's future. And because I am concerned about the well-being of our children, caregivers, and staff in our district due to years of underfunding and lack of strategic and collaborative vision. I think you should elect me to continue in this position because of my many experiences as a student, leader, mentor, and advocate working in large and complex child-serving systems. I've already demonstrated that I can help solve the key issues impacting us today. In this election, some people have said that we should behave like our children are watching, and I agree 100%. And what I want our children to see is that we as a community do everything possible so that they have a future in which they thrive. We all had someone, or wish that we would have had someone who did that for us.
With declining enrollment, what is one bold change you think our schools should make in the next 5 to 10 years to stay relevant?
While it is true that enrollment is declining, we should be careful not to overstate it, right? Between 2021 and 2025, enrollment has decreased by 83 students, which is really just over 3%. And we don't really know why enrollment is declining, so I think the bold piece is to find out, is to collect the data and who's leaving and why. Has there been a shift in demographics? Is rapid gentrification forcing working class families out of Northampton? Are families dissatisfied with the limited options produced by continued cuts to the school budget? Are families dissatisfied and made to feel unsure because of so much turnover in administration and leadership? Are families pulling their kids to send them to charter schools, or has there been an increase in homeschooling? It's the answers to these questions that will inform our strategy. And to remember that satisfied caregivers are the biggest promoters of our schools. We need to hold exit interviews with families. We need to ask them, what is it that you wanted that you didn't get? What is causing you to seek other options? We have to do the work to understand the data, and we have to develop a robust family engagement strategy. I hear you, Zara. Thank you.
Not only will I celebrate and showcase NPS's successes, of which there are many, but I will also advocate against the expansion of charter schools or the establishment of a voucher system. In an effort to expand on our successes, I will collaborate with stakeholders to investigate strengthening the theater, technology, and media programs that our high school is well known for at JFK and perhaps even the elementary schools. By working to rebuild a sense of community and cohesion that was lost over the last several years within the school committee in this district, supporting school leadership in doing the same in their own school communities, advocating for caregiver involvement during the entire educational journey of their child, not just elementary school or high school, but the whole thing, and involving interested community members to use their strengths to help our youth, we can build schools that students thrive in and don't want to leave.
Thanks for this fun question. I like to reimagine our public schools as community schools. They exist across the U.S., about 5,000 of them today, with some here in Massachusetts. Community schools partner with stakeholders and endeavor to serve the whole child through integrated support systems, extended school days and summer programs, and direct engagement with families in the community. These public schools become hubs. We have an opportunity here to rethink how we provide all services to all students. My husband and I felt fortunate to have our kids in buildings with the very people in our community, their teachers and fellow students, an uncurated population that provides the best early lessons in diversity, inequality, compassion, and critical thinking skills. It's unique, and I believe important to most caregivers. And to that, add to that, a spirit of innovation, connection, and bold thinking, and I believe a spark would unite.
I have long believed in a dual immersion Spanish-English program for our district. This kind of programming embraces our diversity as a strength, is highly sought after by families, and will help keep our young people, create a strong and vibrant society in the future. In fact, I actually think that any future override should include some kind of concrete investments in the long-term growth of our district, period. Before we moved here, My daughter went to a dual immersion kindergarten, a Spanish-English kindergarten for 2 years. Half the day was taught in English, the other half in Spanish. It was incredible to see how it changed the dynamics in the classroom, because for half of the day, the Spanish speakers in the room were the experts. It gave those young people a sense of confidence and belonging.
Just like making sure we're good on time. So I'm a big dreamer. I love to dream, and I also have very realistic dreams and goals. Are you ready for the thing that's going to be so bold? It's investing in our schools and dreaming big. I think we need to have full-time, full-week preschool. People buy in early. The earlier, the better. We need sports in the middle school. We need to have a solidly robust arts program that isn't constantly under threat of cuts. I also support a dual language immersion program. It makes us super competitive, and folks will stop wanting to go to the charter schools. Creating more consistent supports academically and socially, emotionally for our English language learners who have the highest dropout rate in our district. We need to provide inspiring, relevant, and consistent professional development to our teachers and staff, and ensure that our students with disabilities are receiving the services that are our responsibility and their right. We want our community to want to stay in Northampton.
One bold change we can make is to first create open dialogue with families who might be considering charter or private schools to understand their needs and concerns, and use this feedback to inform public school improvements and address perceived gaps to make our public schools the first choice, not only for parents that live here, but for those that live in surrounding communities and want to choice in. This will work to reverse retention rates and increase funding for our public schools. Personally, and as a mom, I want to ensure that we are providing access to a well-rounded education that prepares students not only for entering the working world, but to navigate life successfully, which to me means ensuring our public schools provide electives such as band for our elementary school students, after-school sports for our middle schoolers, cooking classes at the high school, and more.
So declining public enrollment is a nationwide phenomenon, and Northampton is certainly not exempt. Big systemic factors are involved, including declining birth rates, housing shortages, school choice pressures, increases in homeschooling, and the undermining of public school funding at the state and at the federal level. As is often the case with complex systemic problems, I don't think there's a single idea that will solve this one. We need to make it easier and desirable for young families to move to Northampton and choose the Northampton Public Schools, and we need to address that on multiple fronts. We need more housing, which I've been working on. We need to fix the state funding formulas, and we're in the middle of a tenacious lobbying effort, thanks to our state legislators and the amazing work of our Northampton high school students. And we need to be willing to support periodic overrides and get beyond the right-wing Prop 2.5 property tax cap, which Northampton has already had a great record of doing. We need our schools to be the best possible, and that means pulling together and dealing forthrightly with any problems that arise. And we need to celebrate all that is wonderful about our public schools, our dedicated educators, our creative curricula, our engaged school community. There's so much positive energy in our community, and I know we can put it to good use to tackle these problems.
What is your understanding of how schools are currently addressing issues related to AI usage? Does this align with your views on productive AI use for students? And what do you think our district's policy should be?
So the school committee should absolutely prioritize AI policy in the next term. We are primarily a policy-making body, and the guidance in this fast-changing area is very sorely needed. Whatever our level of comfort with AI, me, not so much, it's not going away anytime soon. Students, teachers, and community members are all seeking more clarity, and there are serious philosophical, ethical, environmental, and practical questions to consider. And I think that we need to recognize that for some students, it can be a powerful tool that allows them to participate in ways that they haven't been able to before. I certainly don't consider myself an expert on AI, so I can't tell you today what the perfect policy is. Frankly, I don't even think experts on AI could do that. So we're going to have to do a lot of listening to our teachers and our students and hear about their experiences and what they've been, and learn what has been what will be conducive to learning and what will be an impediment, and come up with policies that are realistic and can be implemented, which can also make sure our students know how much, we have to make sure they know how much we value their genuine voice and their critical thinking skills, and how much we value the teachers who teach those skills as well.
My understanding is that we currently do not have policy that outlines a path forward to best integrate AI into our curriculum. In speaking with educators, their biggest concern is that if we are not intentional about how we integrate AI into our curriculum, that we are going to lose sight of our human-centric system, which fosters an environment that focuses on teaching our students how to think critically, read, write, and solve problems. I believe the best way to navigate these inevitable shifts is how we educate our students is to ensure professional development opportunities for our educators to ensure they have an understanding of the capabilities of AI and what levels we should be integrating it into our curriculum to enhance learning. Above and beyond this, I'd like to utilize the voices of the school committee to understand how, from the parent and student perspective, this would work for them and enhance their learning goals.
So I believe we need to have a policy right now. I know that my 8th grader, when he gets help on his homework from me, writes on it, "No AI was used, my mom helped." And I don't know if that's something he has to do. But the thing is, right now, every teacher is creating their own policy, right? And that's very unproductive. And we have a lot of experts in our community. We have caregivers who are working right now for organizations that are talking about the ethical use of AI. I'm very uncomfortable with AI. As an author, it has used my work without my permission to get smarter, and I'm in some kind of way about that. But we need a clear policy and plan that reflects ongoing change, because it can grow with us, right? We need to provide relevant professional development that's ongoing, not just a one-and-done situation. We need to work with students at all levels to learn what they already know about AI and its usage, to explore what responsible use is.
Yes, it's true. We do not have a unified policy for student use of AI. So that indeed places the challenge at the feet of each individual school or each individual teacher. At the high school, they have created policies at the department level with, only a few weeks of school under our belt. It's hard to say how they are faring quite yet because they're new for each department. I think it'll be very difficult to design a school or district-wide policy that adequately addresses the myriad issues involved. That's not to say that we shouldn't do it, but in theory, I like the department-by-department approach because it allows for flexibility based on the particularities of each discipline. But I think that is something that we should integrate into a more comprehensive policy. And like any major change in policy, we need to make sure students and educators are at the center of the process, not an afterthought.
This is an important topic, and I understand and share skepticism directed at AI, but it's here to stay, and our job is to help our students navigate the tool in a way that is not detrimental to their learning. In order to ensure that students' work is their own, I know some teachers leave time during the school day for work to be done, and there are portals that students' work passes through to identify what is AI generated. Filters also exist to monitor or block online content. AI should be reviewed and understood by current research-driven practices in education, and I look forward to supporting administrators and educators in doing this work proactively now, rather than reflexively and reactively.
AI is a rapidly developing technology whose ethical uses are still being discovered. So new, in fact, that the only state that has mandated that school districts adopt AI usage policies is Ohio. And only half of the states have any guidance on AI use in K through 12 schools at all. While we await final guidance from the State House, the school committee needs to develop an age-appropriate policies, perhaps one for each school level, and work with the principals and the educators involved, as well as the students, to ensure student safety and data privacy. Our students must be prepared for the ever-changing world, and learning how to think critically about the vast amount of information we are all faced with every day is imperative. Massachusetts is currently piloting a semester-long Principles of Artificial Intelligence course in 30 districts across the Commonwealth. I am paying close attention to how the pilot is implemented in communities like ours. If it is successful and I am elected, I will advocate for the addition of this course to the NPS curriculum offerings. But above all else, AI should be a tool in the educator's toolbox and should not be a replacement for human educators.
It's really fun to go last on this question, and it's delightful to have a question where so many of us agree. And I remember at school committee meetings, I heard from student representatives some of your concerns around AI, and particularly around academic integrity and transparency as far as homework goes. In last spring, DESE did develop some comprehensive guidance that I think will help us in developing a policy, and I agree with the mayor that it should be a priority this next year. And as Angela said, just today the state announced a new partnership around a new and robust AI curriculum. Several districts in Western Mass are taking part in that, and we should try to get in on the action. I think I think about this policy development always as putting students at the center. I think it's very important for me to know we need you to tell us how it's impacting you, right? You know that better than anybody else. How can we help you to manage this technology and your sense of agency in the face of it? This is how we make good policy and find good solutions.
If a bell-to-bell phone ban became a reality, how do you support schools in its implementation, monetarily, staffing for enforcement, and in developing systems to facilitate communications in urgent or emergency situations for students and families?
Thank you for taking my phone away. I understand the arguments for getting rid of cell phones in school. We spend too much time on our phones, and this comes at a cost. Recently, the school committee had a presentation on this with a strong recommendation for all-day phone-free schools. For those of you who've been watching school committee, you know that I'm not in favor of a blanket ban for all children in all settings. A second grader is not the same as a seventh grader or a senior. We should make policy based on students' development and use it as a scaffold to boost learning and self-regulation. High school students, especially 11th and 12th graders, are emerging adults and will benefit more from a policy that is more nuanced. An ad hoc working group is currently working on bringing us a recommendation, so we have to let that process play out. I have insisted that no policy be developed without student input. We have a lot to learn from you. But if a blanket bell-to-bell phone became a reality, we would have to ensure robust and full funding for every front office at every school. And we also need to ensure access to devices for students with medical or developmental requirements.
While there is an ad hoc committee looking into developing a cell phone policy for NPS, it appears as though the state will likely pass a bell-to-bell phone ban law. In order to effectively implement any new district-wide policy, we need to collaborate with caregivers, teachers, students, and administrators to ensure that everyone understands the importance of their role in the successful implementation of any new policy. The state law may come with funding to support implementation. If it doesn't, then one-time funds could be requested from the city council, or a grant could be applied for. Other districts that have implemented bell-to-bell bans have had a significant enough decrease in behavioral issues that they have not needed to hire additional staff for enforcement. As with most policies, there needs to be some flexibility to allow for students who have unique needs, such as work, medical, or familial needs.
This is another very important topic. I support the need for a comprehensive plan for a bell-to-bell cell phone ban, and I'm glad to know there's already an ad hoc working group that includes students, caregivers, educators, and community members. This is a complex issue that evokes strong feelings and must be done with great care and understanding. Issues of implementation should be arrived at through local feedback, research, and best practices already in place elsewhere. We have an opportunity to approach this issue with curiosity and excitement as to how to plan could improve learning and engagement in our schools, while still recognizing the need for systems of communication in a world where cell phones are at the center.
I know that this is a matter of great concern to many of our high schoolers. Not only do I have one in my home who tells me all the time, but we hear it just about every school committee meeting from our representatives, and with good reason. Many young people cannot imagine going multiple hours without access to their phones. Indeed, many adults can't either. And how many times have we heard people say, oh, I feel naked without my phone, right? It has become almost a part of us. So I imagine that there will be a major transition period, potentially even emotionally for some of our students, which is why this the ad hoc committee, we pushed really hard and the students pushed really hard for robust student involvement. Emphasis here on the word robust, because it's one thing to have a student come to the meeting. It's another thing to actually listen to them.
Thanks. So we need funds, obviously, because there will be initial cost of materials and staffing that aren't covered in our current budget. This is going to be a hard thing to implement, but I know we can do hard things if we have to do it. We also have to consider all of the stakeholders. What does it look like for students who are caring for family members? What does it look like for students with jobs, for students who take classes off campus? For teachers, what will the ban look like for teachers having phones in the classroom? What will it look like at school committee members, for school committee members having phones on the tables during our meetings? We need to have a really clear, solid plan that is communicated frequently and not just as a link in a monthly newsletter. We need to be holding multiple sessions for students and caregivers around what this will entail, and more specifically, receiving your input. We have to be flexible and learn from the moments that aren't working well, because there will be ones that don't work well for us, but there will be ones that do, and we can grow on those. And lastly, I totally always want to hear from the students and the teachers. What's working, what isn't? Creating new systems that impact the classroom should be made not in a vacuum, right? Because our classrooms are not vacuums.
I have been paying attention to how other communities are navigating this issue, such as West Springfield, who just reported out how this has been working in their schools over the past year. What struck me the most was the decrease in fighting they saw as students were utilizing their cell phones to create content for social media platforms. I do think that moving in this direction will be something we should really talk about as a community, but we need to understand what challenges cell phone usage is creating for our students and work together closely with them and with families to ensure they are on the same page on how to help our students navigate this in productive ways. Regarding implementation, and specifically regarding emergency situations, we need to ensure that offices are properly staffed to ensure a call can be placed and received, ensuring students are notified, as well as develop protocols with fire and police. This will take the burden off of navigating these situations off of students and put it back in the hands of the adults to help ensure that students can focus on learning.
So it's very likely that this state bill is going to pass, and Governor Healy has already indicated her support of it. So I think we need to acknowledge that there is momentum, and this is likely going to happen. And we need to operate on that assumption. So as you've heard, we put out a call for interest, and as the chair, this week I'll be appointing an ad hoc committee of school committee members, students, caregivers, staff, and administrators to provide input on what a policy should look like for Northampton. It's critical that all stakeholders are involved in hammering out this policy that addresses the distraction and mental health concerns, but also allows for the flexibility that some situations may need, or that certain students may need who use devices as part of an accommodation, or for medical or for other reasons. So it's important that we look at all of those issues. I have also already had initial conversations about what would be needed for a capital request for a system for implementation, whether it's Yonder pouches or some other kind of system. So that is actually very doable for us to look at for next year.
Now that MCAS has been removed as a graduation requirement, how do you seek to assess and maintain our educational standards in our district?
DESE has laid out the new competency determination coursework requirements for graduation, and there can be additional local requirements determined by the district. So we need to update our policies and show what NHS courses will be used for CD requirements. The school committee must vote on these updated policies, post and translate them, and submit them to DESE by the end of this calendar year. The Rules and Policy Subcommittee, administrators, guidance department, special education, and multilingual educators are working on amendments to bring to the next school committee meeting. Additionally, I think we should have a district-wide conversation to create the portrait of an NHS graduate that aligns with the vision of a Massachusetts graduate that the Healy Driscoll administration released last week, but one that is specific to Northampton and to our students. I think it's important that we look at our courses and also how our day and sections are structured to ensure that they are fair assessments of mastery of the materials, but also that we have ways to adapt the requirements and core competencies for every student and their learning needs and any accommodations that they may need for whatever they want to do post-high school.
As the first class to have taken the MCAS in the 3rd grade and watching what standardized testing did to my fellow students who were non-native English speakers as well as those navigating disabilities, I am so excited to move away from standardized testing. I see this as an opportunity to develop a curriculum that more directly meets the needs of all our students and to build a more educator-driven, child-focused curriculum. This also gives us the opportunity to work with educators, parents, and students to redefine what we want a portrait of a graduate to look like and outline a set of standards that fosters and ensures the success of each individual student in our public schools.
We know that standardized tests like MCAS have been used as instruments of racism and bias for decades in this country. And I am so proud of us all for resisting that misuse, abuse, and overuse of inequitable and unjust assessment. And I know we can do better. And as the state continues to build recommendations for us, we need to actually work with teachers and staff who work with learners to understand their current tools of assessments. This is happening every day in our classrooms. Teachers are assessing students from observations, from quizzes, from chapter tests, from skills, portfolio-based assessments. There are so many different things that allow us to see a whole child because you are not numbers, you're whole people.
I supported the removal of MCAS as a graduation requirement for all of those reasons. It was a poor measure of achievement, especially the type of achievement we associate with a high school diploma. I did not have to take such a test or pass such a test when I graduated from high school in Madison, Wisconsin. This meant I was able to concentrate on the content of my classes and on growing as a person, which I did a lot of in high school. I walk kiddos to school every week on the Bridge Street walking school bus, and I have seen how this test has taken its toll on our children, and I want whatever comes next to not repeat those mistakes. I've talked to 2nd graders who spoke of losing sleep because of anxiety over MCAS. Whatever tool or process we devise to assess students' eligibility for graduation, it needs to be something that adds to the student's learning, not takes away from time on learning, and creates, indeed, a full picture of the student's abilities.
Our state has a working group on establishing standards for graduates, thank you. And our school committee with community stakeholders are supporting the work of Principal Taglieri in developing the picture of a Northampton graduate. We also need to align with folks at all the other schools in the city, as well as the middle and elementary schools in this effort. The high school is not alone in developing our students. We need a way to evaluate if students have learned the necessary information and skills for graduation, and to ensure that we are preparing them to continue their education or compete in the job market. We should honor the original purpose of MCAS from the Education Reform Act, the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment Systems, plural, including all measures of student achievement, not just one standardized test. Students can show what they know in a variety of ways. We have an opportunity here to create an equitable system that showcases what our students are doing. I look forward to seeing what the MCAS working groups produce.
So I think I mentioned in my introduction that I'm on the NHS School Council, and one of the primary pieces of work that we will be doing this year is on the council will be to develop the portrait of a graduate that aligns with the state's portrait as well. While this work has barely begun, and in addition to the coursework that the state is going to require, some of the qualities we have discussed are resilience, strong foundations in financial and digital literacy, an awareness of a variety of worldviews, and the openness to collaboratively build consensus and compromise. I believe that can be followed, a portfolio can follow a child from kindergarten or pre-K all the way through 12th grade to prove that they have met those skills as we go along. And if I were elected as a school committee member, not only would I take the work that I've learned, or what I've learned from the NHS School Council to continue working on that, but I also would work with the middle schools and the elementary schools principals to try to develop a portrait of a graduate that follows them all the way from pre-K through 12, so we have a comprehensive picture of what a graduate in Northampton should look like.
Well, again, what a delight. I really agree with most of what's already been said, and I don't think I need to repeat it. We've all done our homework. We know about what the state is doing. I agree with Mayor Shara that we have a lot of work to do. I really think this is such a hopeful question and a hopeful thing to think about, because I feel that one of the things that's been missing are real, profound, authentic conversations from many different perspectives about just this, right? One of the benefits of eliminating MCAS is the opportunity to really think about what we want our graduates to leave with. And I want you, the students, to give us the bulk of that information. I know that Dr. Bonner and Principal Taglieri, who I met for the first time earlier today, brought this to a Rules and Policy Subcommittee to talk about how we make sure that this change doesn't negatively affect our current students in this moment of transition, and what this means for all different groups of students. And this is great, and that's exactly the kind of care we have to take as we move forward. You didn't have to bang the gavel. Oh.
All right. What are your guys' ideas around potential consolidation of our elementary schools in our district?
Experience with closing and consolidating schools. This is an area that deserves exceptional care and attention, because it really cannot be undone. I think Robbie talked earlier about how elementary schools are profoundly important community hubs, serving both educational and social purposes. Smaller neighborhood schools are better for students. In the short time I've been on school committee, I've heard this talked about in two ways. One, it'll fix our budget shortfall. To my knowledge, the work to cost out the savings has not been done, and I would be surprised if they were significant. Secondly, in a recent Budget and Property Subcommittee, we met with Ben Wheel, who's our CAPA director, and it became clear that the driver behind this idea of closing a school, in this case Bridge Street School, where our most at-risk children are, is achieving our carbon zero goal. It is too expensive to build a new building, and retrofitting the Bridge Street envelope is not feasible. So we should look at everything, but again, our priorities need always to be the educational needs and well-being of our children, caregivers, and staff.
There is currently an ad hoc committee whose work is to determine if consolidations, is a viable means of addressing the current challenges and opportunities that NPS faces. If elected, I, along with my school committee peers, will review their findings and recommendations. That being said, at this time, unless there will be significant savings demonstrated and or improvement in student outcomes demonstrated, I do not believe that consolidation would best serve the students of this district at this time. Rather than that, I would like to make an effort to increase enrollment at any of the schools that might have significantly decreased enrollment by offering programs such as dual language immersion, or perhaps a theater program or a media program.
The Strategic Planning Consolidation Work Group, which is part of the strategic plan for Northampton schools, has been studying this issue since March of this year and is made up of volunteer parents, teachers, community members, and our superintendent, Dr. Bonner. The group is reviewing the needs of our school buildings along with enrollment changes. I look forward to their findings, and based on those, we'll look to see what's in the best interest of our 2,500 students and the budget, as well as for information on efforts to achieve net zero and climate-ready school buildings. That's a commitment the district has made to sustainability.
So the first thing I will say is we cannot close Bridge Street School. Yes, it is the oldest building and the smallest plot of land. It's also on a site that would be perfect for luxury condos. But this is a decision we need to make based on the needs of students first, period. The district tried to close Bridge Street School many years ago, but Ward 3 and the school community showed us how critical Bridge Street School is to this town. It's a historic school site with a vibrant school community. It's our only urban school and is highly walkable, which is actually especially important considering our goals around climate. Of course, none of these are going to be easy decisions. All of our schools are loved by their communities, which is why we need to carefully consider both the savings and challenges of the various options and not just assume consolidation is the way to go.
So first and foremost, above anything, we need community transparency. We need to also understand the culture of our schools, who is in them, who they're serving, because our schools, as everyone agrees, are the center of our communities with this city. And the schools are all different. I have been in our elementary schools. The cultures of each school is very different. So you can't just close one school and expect everybody to go to another school and everything will be fine. This is a decision that should not be made behind closed doors. There needs to be open forums. There needs to be a lot of community input. And there needs to be thoughtful, carefully planned process, because we're essentially building a whole new community if we need to shut down a school, which do we even need to? So, I'm all messed up from the, no, just kidding. We're good. We're making decisions for the children who are in our schools now and who will come in the future.
I am not clear that this is the best step forward for our students and their families. But as we talk about Bridge Street School, I live on Graves Avenue, and my son, who is 4, has been asking me for 2 years when he gets to go to Bridge Street School with all of his friends that have been there for a few years. So I know that he will be very devastated if Bridge Street School closes. In speaking with parents and educators, most feel that this conversation has been held behind closed doors with a small group of people. We need to bring experts who have deep knowledge of the pros and cons of what the outcomes of this type of shift would look like, as well as parents, students, and educators to the table to understand their viewpoints and how to best navigate forward in ways that support the success of our students.
So first of all, we are also a Bridge Street School family. It's very near and dear to my heart. My kids had a fabulous experience there. So as you've heard, there's a strategic plan working group that is looking at facilities. While there would be some cost savings if a building closes, it isn't necessarily such a significant annual savings that in and of itself it would be a game changer for our school budget, especially since the building or buildings the students would be consolidated into would also have to take on additional costs. So I think the important thing to focus on is what is the best learning environment and how do we create healthy environments across the city that work for how we educate students now and into the future. What is the model that is most supportive of our students and of our staff? This is a community conversation, and I hope that we can have it in a genuine and open way, assessing proposals from the perspective of what is the best environment for those who use those buildings daily.
Do you believe our city's discourse around the school budget has been productive? And if not, how do you plan to move the conversation forward?
In a sense, yes, it has been productive. We've been able to increase the annual appropriation by a record 32% since I've been mayor, in part because of a robust debate we've had and lots of different ideas that we've listened to, and we've sought to incorporate those ideas to the greatest extent possible. We heard suggestions to use more money from our reserve accounts for schools, and we've tapped $5 million in reserves. We've used free cash to seed a special education stabilization fund, which we're keeping going with Medicaid reimbursements, creating a new revenue stream for schools. We've heard suggestions to adopt more aggressive revenue estimates, even if that means smaller surpluses at the end of the year. We've been pushing those revenue estimates for the last few years. You know the people in this conversation who have really set the example for constructive engagement? It's the students. I've had great conversations with members of the Student Union, Student Advisory Council, and the city's Youth Commission. They work to have accurate information and they advocate for school funding in public meetings with respect and strength, and that's important, and we should lead by their example.
I believe that when it comes to conversations around difficult issues, such as what we have been facing around the school budgets, that is our leaders that set the tone. When we have leadership that continues to dismiss the concerns of educators, parents, and students, rather than bringing those voices to the table and working alongside them to outline a path forward, we continue to breed an environment of division. That being said, the citizen engagement around this issue has been productive, and I am proud of those that have shown up to do the work to move us forward and ensure we're not leaving any of our students behind. I plan on leading us through this with my deep understanding that those on the ground, students, educators, and parents, should be driving this conversation and should be spearheading the process. And I will work alongside our community to develop a sustainable plan that prioritizes the needs of our students first.
I don't think we should have to fight so hard for our students to be able to attend schools that are staffed and resourced. The learners, hold your applause, I got time. So the learners in our community have a right to receive a fair and just education, and they're not yet. I think the discourse has been productive in that many more folks are aware of schools' budgets, right? It's not something we think about all the time. And I also think we shouldn't have to spend so much time working on hypotheticals. In the JSS Council, we spent majority of our year creating arguments on why we needed to retain certain staff when we could have been doing so many other things. I also think that we shouldn't have to miss key hiring moments because we don't have an agreed upon budget at the right time. To move the conversation forward, a few things need to happen. Transparency around the budget. Members of the ALT team and the school committee can work with school councils and offer community sessions where folks can learn about the numbers and ask questions, because if there are questions don't get asked, we just make up the answers ourselves. And while we're fighting for our equitable share of state funding, we also need our city council to honor our schools with the funding they need to be so they can be robust and competitive. This means working with council members so we can all understand the needs of our schools that go beyond just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yes, it has been productive, if not always easy, but of course, as has been said, let's be real, if people just kept quiet, the students in our schools would be without millions of dollars in investment. It wasn't a gift from an enlightened, benevolent, unicorn, or the leadership, right? FDR, when he was elected, said, "Okay, you elected me to do these things. Now make me do them," and that is what has been happening in our community. I am a community organizer, so I see public discourse as the necessary fertilizer for a meaningful democratic decision-making process. Of course, now I stay away from social media because I actually find it to be antithetical to and a poor substitute for actual human interaction. So I choose to remove myself and not engage in and avoid vitriolic rhetoric, and instead focus on communications from actual students, actual caregivers, educators.
The discourse around the budget has not been productive, and it's one of the reasons that I'm running. Suggesting that some people are against funding schools or don't care about children, as well as the use of shaming and name-calling, are obstacles to productive discourse and problem solving. The job of an elected official is to provide transparent, impartial information. This has nothing to do with opinion and everything to do with accuracy. Handpicking data and manipulating very real emotions causes confusion. The school committee's job is to advocate for students and to use the budget allocation from the city to provide the maximum positive impact. Anything else is a waste of time, as public schools are under attack by the federal government and underfunded by our state. The superintendent we hire in this next year must be dynamic, treated with respect, and ready to lead and collaborate on tough questions around current use of funds and learning from best practices used elsewhere.
As an educator, I believe that any time people's curiosity is piqued enough to learn something new that they may not ordinarily have any interest in, it is a productive endeavor. And how many of us learned about municipal budgets? Never probably really wanted to know about it, but we know about it now, don't we? I am disappointed, though, in the school committee's narrative that the only place for public education funding is through the city. The state also contributes, as well as the federal government. I will be advocating for both of those to match what they have said in law that they are supposed to do. Also, we need to make sure we recognize the Northampton Education Foundation, which was born out of the last major school fiscal crisis and has been a tremendous amount of support for the schools in Northampton. There are also a vast array of state grants that would support many of the programs people are talking about on this stage that have not been applied for and have been left on the table. Alumni donations is another source of revenue that many public schools in the United States use to make ends meet. I think we need to look at all the resources that are available to us.
We're in the midst of a very challenging conversation in Northampton about how to use our resources. If you've watched and been to school committee meetings and city council meetings, we have seen caregivers, teachers, children rise up with passion and energy to protest the insufficient funding and the harm that this is inflicting every day. These are healthy and necessary responses in a democracy. It is a gift to us, and we should show our respect and gratitude to each one of them who stand up and make their voices heard, and we need to listen to them and do our very best to make it better. Yes, the conversations have been uncomfortable, they have strained relationships, but I agree with the mayor and many people here who've said they have been productive. As Angela said, more people understand the budget and the choices being made. People in the district who have felt marginalized for a long time are for the first time seen and heard and feel like they matter. And these conversations have, in fact, brought more resources to the schools. For example, the mid-year appropriations of almost $300,000 and moving the mayor from a 4 to 5.88% budget, saving probably 20 jobs.
It is no secret that our special education department has been under increased scrutiny this past year or more. How do you plan to improve our special education systems and service delivery?
Thank you for that question. I have lots of experience in this area as a former director of early intervention and as a former director of Child Find for the City of New York. Over 40% of our district's children are considered high risk, and about 700 or 25% have IEPs. As you know, DESE investigated our district as a result of a serious parent complaint and found us in violation of state law in a number of ways. Not meeting IEP service delivery, not tracking missed services, not having the proper licensed personnel to deliver some of the services. Don't get me wrong. I mean, these are civil rights violations, and they are a direct result of insufficient school funding, as parents have been telling us. Here is what I've already done in my role as school committee member, ensuring that this is brought to the agenda for ongoing discussion, ensuring accountability and oversight. We have brought before us the Director of Student Services to tell us what it will take to implement the necessary fixes, dug deep into the case report created for our schools that discusses the strengths and challenges of our special education program, and highlighted the necessity of a real family engagement strategy that can repair some of the deep erosion of trust that has been identified.
I'm going to speak more about the case collaborative report that Anat alluded to, which you can find online. You just have to look up Case Collaborative Report Northampton, and you can read it for yourself. I'm going to highlight some of it highlighted our strengths and weaknesses in our special education program in our district. I'm going to just talk about some of the weaknesses because I do think that there are some solutions that are easy enough to find. One of the major things they found was that our curriculum is not aligned and not accessible throughout the district, including our tiered support. And we have a lack of staff training on the curriculum that we need to use for our tiers, which are interventions. The school committee can ask for one-time funds for curriculum and training because they are non-recurring expenses. The other thing I want to highlight was that inconsistent implementation of programs and curriculum is another problem, as well as the need to rebuild collaborative relationships between home and school. I strongly feel that our enormous amount of leadership turnover in this district has been a large portion of the problem with our special education program. There have been 3 different principals at JFK in the last 3 years. It is not a coincidence that that is the school that had the highest rate of non-IEP compliance. We have got to find a way for our leaders to be welcome and stay in our community.
It's important to recognize that people are hurting, and I'm grateful to those who came forward and spoke up to the systemic weakness can be addressed. A crucial first step is the recently launched district-wide accountability system to improve the organization and delivery of special education services, and to make sure students are receiving the services they need, and to rebuild damaged trust with caregivers and the community. It is essential to work with special educators, administrators, and the team of teachers and paraprofessionals. They are the experts in this field. It's also true that changes in students' needs, as our world changes, must be recognized and respected, and educators need ongoing support and education and best practices to meet these needs. I'm not on the school committee yet, but if more funding is necessary, I'll advocate for that.
It will be necessary. I can tell you that. As a parent of a kid with an IEP, I have had to navigate the labyrinth of processes, confusing requirements. It's awful. And then on top of that, to realize that I actually don't know which parts of my kid's IEP provisions are being followed and which are maybe being a little bent. And I'm not entirely sure how to advocate for making a change about that. As an individual, that's terrifying. And imagine how 25% of our students, their parents might be feeling some version of that. That's a very challenging situation, to be sure. One of the issues is that we schedule our IEP system such that if anybody is sick, now we are suddenly missing services. It's tight as a drum in that sense, and so it will cost money to solve that part.
I'm seeing a pattern here. It involves investing in our schools, and that is money and time and energy and experience and expertise and so many things. My plan is we need to first work to rebuild community and trust. We need to put our restorative justice practice or training and learning to use. And we also need to provide opportunities for families and the community to learn about the services that we provide, because they will hold us accountable to that. We need to work on retaining our paraprofessionals, BCBAs, and early career teachers, and ensure that the folks providing special education services in our schools have clear and defined roles, and that those roles are truly honored. And we need interventionists in all schools at all levels all the time. We need to communicate. We need to communicate among staff, with learners, caregivers, district admin, cross grade levels, and schools. And our policies and procedures need to be clear and explicit because nothing should ever be implied.
This is about priorities, and clearly the way we are making decisions made special education a non-priority. Our inability to prioritize special education has put our most vulnerable students and their caregivers in crisis. For some families, this has forced them to find alternative options for schooling for their children. And for those families who cannot afford support outside of the public school system, this has signaled that leaving their children behind is an option. And I cannot imagine what that does to a family. This is our responsibility, and I will not let this continue to happen. I will prioritize special education by working closely with the school committee, superintendent, educators, students, and parents to ensure their needs are met.
So it's deeply important to me that every student is getting the education that they need and that every educator is getting the support they need in delivering it. We have a legal and a moral obligation to ensure that students on IEPs receive the services that they deserve and that they need. The recent investigation by DESE did find that in the last school year, full implementation of IEPs for all students was not met. And factors specified in the report included a workforce that was, quote, understaffed by 7 to 8 budgeted paraprofessional positions, and that the premise of all scheduled paraprofessional support staff would be in attendance daily was not actually the case. So the findings revealed an unacceptable failure in our obligations, and I thank the caregivers and the students and the staff who voiced their concerns and called attention to these problems. DESE has mandated corrective actions, and the administration has met the first deadline, which was September 19th, and is implementing that plan of action. But we absolutely have to stay on top of it to ensure that every student gets what they need.
What is one thing you hope students of NPS take away from their education in this district?
There are things that I know MPS imparts to students because I have known and worked with so many over the years. And I see this in my own middle and high school kids. And that is a fierce sense of social justice, a belief in the power of community and the power of kindness, a sense of responsibility for their environment and the broader world, the ability to look at many angles of an issue but also hold their center, an unwillingness to accept the status quo if it doesn't serve, and a tenacity and a belief in their own power, and not to mention a sassiness and a real sense of humor on some of you. I hope you take away with you a firm belief that your home community greatly values your voice and that we are so, so proud of you. And I hope that no matter where life takes you, you feel how welcome you are to always come back.
So I'm going to share a little bit with you that my journey to achieve education has been anything but traditional. I went to Holyoke Public Schools until I lost my home in the 9th grade and had to go to Commerce for a year where my dad lived. Then I went to work and I got a car and I choiced into Holyoke to graduate with my friends. When I left home at 17, I went to work and I went to Holyoke Community College. It took me 10 years to figure out what I wanted to do, working my way slowly to make that happen. And once I made it as a non-traditional age student at Mount Holyoke College, I sat in the chair of my advisor with my plan laid out of how I was going to get to law school. And what she said to me is, you need to put that plan aside. What you need to know about what you'll learn here is that wherever you go, you will have the skills to achieve what you need to achieve. And what I would like to leave our students with is an understanding that no matter what your journey is through education, that you are supported, that we will be here for you, and that you're going to make it because we give you the skills you need to show up where you are and do what you need to do to make your life happen.
What I want for you is I want you to be ready to take on the world and to know that you're ready. I want you to remember those change maker lessons you had way back in elementary school, maybe in Miss Jenny Jen's class or Miss Mangione's, one of the amazing kindergarten teachers. And I hope you know the change makers aren't just folks in your history books, but they exist right here, right now within you and within us too. May you always seek truth and be bold and brave wherever you are. And I also want to give you some of your own words back to you. Well, Ella Hendricks' words from her commencement speech last year. When the world tells us silently to go along, it is our job to remain rooted in what we believe. When academic freedoms are threatened and institutions disguise complacency as neutrality, it is our job to refuse to become complacent.
First and foremost, I would say confidence in themselves. My daughter's father was told by an elementary school teacher that he would never amount to anything. That message stuck with him, undermining his confidence even into adulthood. Conversely, I know that if he had access to trusted adults at school who could have helped him navigate the challenges of his home life and find confidence in his own intellect, things would have been very different for him. In fact, this is what good teachers do, just as Jillian was talking about. They teach us to believe in and hone the skills that already exist within us. Secondly, I want students to walk away from NPS with the ability to think critically about the world and our place in it. The future of our society is shaped by the way we invest or don't invest in our young people. I want the future to be one that can think for itself.
I want our students to know their points of view are being listened to and honored, while the adults around them bring their best selves to the tasks of working together to engage in robust discussion and provide top-notch educational and social experiences that include a real understanding of diversity, linguistic, racial, social class, and learning styles, and that public schools are a critical component of democracy.
What I would like for all of you to take away from the school district is the importance and the intertwined role that public education, critical thinking, divergent viewpoints, tolerance of those viewpoints, collaboration, compromise, and community play in a thriving democracy. Because after all, that's why we're here. Public education was created in this state for the support of a thriving democracy. And right now, that is in peril from the top down. And I think that as students in Massachusetts schools, it is very important that we remember that. The ability to find consensus on difficult subjects without diminishing the needs of everyone involved is also an important skill. Support and kindness are important even when people disagree. And I hope that you guys all realize that we can disagree, but still get along.
I apologize in advance for the sappy being sappy. I wish for you to have had a real beginning experience of your intellectual, social, creative capabilities in an environment where you have felt loved and thought about and held in someone's mind and challenged and supported, and to have some beginning sense of what you might want to do and what you might be good at. I want you to graduate having a strong sense of self, of being able to trust yourself and others and relationships, to be able to take perspective, to have empathy for others, to be able to form relationships, to tolerate conflict, and know how to repair injuries. I want you to always be curious and brave and able to take risks.
No, they're working on it. Okay, well, I'm just gonna, well, I don't know. Okay. Oh, yay, there we go. Okay, it works, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this is gonna be our last question, and it's a closing question, so since the mayoral candidates are gonna be able to answer it in the next round, you guys can skip out on this one. So, very simple. Is there anything you guys would like to expand upon in closing?
I fully understand that city and school budgets are complex. Of course we need more money from the state. Of course we need charter school funding formulas changed. Of course we need more help from Smith. But I think what we're struggling with here is not primarily a money problem. In a city like Northampton, where we're producing millions of dollars in surplus revenue each year, and have used that to build extraordinary reserves, we have so much opportunity to figure this out, to talk with each other, to recruit and nurture the very best leadership, to try new things, and to be a model district that takes deep care of our children, caregivers, and staff. I believe that most people in Northampton want us to find a way to fully fund our schools and make sure that all children are served well. Whoever gets elected or re-elected on November 4th, we need you to listen deeply to our children, families, staff, and also to our school committee. We need all our leaders to demonstrate empathy, resilience, curiosity, and willingness to try new things.
I alluded to this earlier in my introduction. We chose Massachusetts, and we moved here about 3 years ago because of a series of events that happened. One was the pandemic in Florida, but the other was the denial of an IEP for my child who was diagnosed as being on the spectrum. I am fully aware that the IEP process in our country is challenging and difficult and unequitable and unfair, and I will work to make sure and support that process here and to try to make sure that we do not let that slide again. One of the things that I am really good at, and I did really well in Florida, was making sure that whether you're a Moms for Liberty person or you're a liberal like me, you get along, and you get along because you remain focused on the students. This is all about you guys and your needs and what we need to do as adults to provide for you the best possible ability for you to have the best possible outcome. Thank you.
It's difficult to live in our world right now. So much of what is happening is outside of our control. People naturally turn to their own communities to feel a sense of purpose and to affect positive change, and that is a good thing. The school committee's primary stated purpose is to set educational goals and policies, review and approve the budget, manage school property, and hire and evaluate the superintendent. Those fortunate enough to be elected have one overall job: to come together on behalf of our students. Nobody else. To do that effectively means we should leave politics outside the meeting room. Anything else hurts our students. The opposite of politics on a school committee is productivity. I'll work with anyone to be productive for all of Northampton students. Thank you.
This problem that we exist in right now was not caused by the current leaders in our district or our city. It's part of the reason why I don't engage in name calling or finger pointing. But it must be solved by us. We have that responsibility. Some wise and powerful women once said, "It will be a great day when our schools get all the money they need and the Air Force has to hold a bake sale to buy another bomber." Is there any lessons we could take from that? Let's imagine that future together and then take real steps towards making it a reality. And doing so, in my opinion, actually is the best type of politics.
For the applause that Zara said y'all should hold. No, thank you to all the students, their caregivers, and the adults who are guiding them through this. This is amazing. I love you all. But I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. I am running a zero waste campaign. So I've been listening to the young people in our community for years. Remember, I've been an educator for over 20 years here, and hearing that one of the biggest concerns is climate change. I don't want to be a part of the problem and put campaign waste into the landfills. I want to be a part of the solution. We're getting creative and we're having fun because I will always center joy and a love for liberation and truth in everything I do. I won't ask for money either. You can share some in-kind donations of delicious snacks and things when we have parties, but way too much money has already been put into this election, and instead I'm asking folks to contribute to local student and family-centered mutual aid. I've done this work before. I am not new to this. I will be bold and honest. I will always fight for fair and just schools. I have a long track record of doing this. I will always bring the conversation back to the learners because I think y'all are amazing. And I will always work to usher our schools into the future.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to be a little bit more intense about the bagel giving next round. Yes, a well-deserved round of applause. That was a long time. Thank you so much to the school committee mayoral candidates. If you could take your seats by 7:45, that'd be amazing. I think the timing was pretty good, so yeah, thank you. Little break. If city council candidates have signs they want to put up, please come give them to me. Thank you. Yes, you can take yours down. No, I do not. Okay. There's also pizza in the band room if you. Okay, and we're gonna start again. Right as soon as Jillian gets on the stage and people finish coming in. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, let's just start. Obviously, this is going to be another introduction question, so we can skip the mayoral candidates who you've already heard from. So, city council candidates, introduce yourself and what is your motivation for running for city council? We can start with Deb Henson.
Sorry. That's okay. Hello, I'm Deb Henson, candidate for City Councilor at Large. I'm a lawyer and a clinical social worker, born in Kansas, but I consider New Orleans my adult home. You'll hear me say y'all a lot. The baby boom hadn't hit the Deep South when my then partner and I decided we wanted children. So we were a bit of an anomaly back in the early 90s. We both had been educated in public schools and wanted that for our children, which was difficult in New Orleans, but we prevailed. I also helped several two-mom families, plus our own, obtain second-parent adoptions. So the kids would have legally recognized parents. Although common today, it was not so back then, and Louisiana did not recognize same-sex marriages, so it required a bit of legal finagling to accomplish. I felt compelled to run for city council after hearing hours of public pleas for the schools to fully fund our schools so that children can get out of education they need and deserve. And I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Nice. Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Spencer, and I'm excited to be running for councilor at large. I believe the strength of our amazing community comes from our capacity to work together to address the challenges that we face. I intend to be an independent representative who listens to the residents of the city and works to make sure their voices are heard. Over the years, I have been on both sides of decisions being made at City Hall. I have fought and lost, and I have fought and won. I will take what I have learned from those experiences and use it to help every resident in the city fight for positive change. People have told me that they are unsatisfied with the responsiveness from City Hall. I've had similar frustrations over the years, and I know how discouraging that can be. We need to work diligently and collaboratively to address the needs of our city. I will work to improve communication between residents and city government. I am especially interested in hearing from people who have felt unheard. I look forward to working with you all.
I'm actually going to use this little here mic stand. Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank you for inviting us all here and hosting this event. It's really inspiring. Anywho, I'm Garrick Perry. I have served 2 years as a Ward 4 city councilor, and now I'm one of your 2 current city councilors at large. I moved to Massachusetts from D.C. to attend Amherst College and stayed when I graduated because of how amazing this place and its people are. I've lived in the city of Northampton most of my adult life. I've been a renter my entire time in the city. I've worked primarily in the retail and service industries with a focus on managing music venues, clubs, and community spaces. I'm a musician myself, and I've toured with my band for over 20 years. I'm a proud father. Both of my kids attend schools here in Northampton, one at JFK and the other over at Smith Voke. And I'm running again because I feel my skill sets, my experiences, both lived and as a counselor, my passion and my level-headed leadership are still of value to our city as we navigate the many challenges and issues facing us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meg Robbins, Margaret on the ballot, and I'm also an at-large candidate for City Council. And I want to thank you, Student Union at NHS, for offering our community this opportunity to better know candidate positions and more about your voting choices. I've been an active member of our community from the time I was a young mother, advocating to our school committee to add an additional class for an overcrowded JSS first grade. I taught many years ago right here at NHS, and some of your teachers or parents were my students or NPS school friends of my children. I served as a member of the 22-24 school committee and valued the active insight and contributions of your teachers that they made to the curriculum committee I chaired. Your student input and energy in bringing areas of concern to the school committee was remarkable. I wish we could have been more proactive in coming directly to you. I'm here because I feel that we've lost our way as a city of neighborhoods in terms of communication and representation. As a more than half-century resident of our city,
I look forward to working with colleagues who prioritize essential services as identified by the voters who put us here.
Please hold your applause. Thank you.
Many building and housing projects in Northampton have been canceled, with developers citing high material costs. How will you support and facilitate projects in our city with affordability, particularly for housing, in mind?
Meg.
I know how hard it is for many to stay in Paradise City or for you to consider growing and raising your own families here. Young residents struggle to get a foot in the door for home ownership. Fixed income seniors worry about whether they can afford to age in place, and rental prices skyrocket. Some of the policies and ordinances the city has instituted have worsened gentrification and will continue to lure the wealthy to our city rather than focusing on the needs of those who already live here. I listened to last week's City Housing Forum where builders talked about what challenges they faced in cost and legislation. 3 of us asked what it would take to legislate 20% of every new build or rebuild as affordable. Our own planning director basically said it was too much to ask developers, as it would cut into their profits. Our city is deeply embedded in trickle-down housing economics. It's not working. Residents should not have to raise thousands of dollars to hire environmental experts and attorneys to simply be heard. People looking for housing should give real meaning to the concept of affordable.
Thank you. In terms of what I would do to support, I am in support of two-family by right legislation that allows accessory dwelling units, and I recently voted in support of lowering the minimum number of parking spaces for units. It's not only lessen financial burden for developers, but really for families who want to live closer together and invite others into their orbit. I will continue to do the work of learning what hurdles exist in the market. As the chair and vice chair of community resources, we've held forums on housing to discuss this matter. And we've learned that one of the things we can do is continue to advocate at a state and federal level for assistance. And I will continue to look at ways to make Northampton not only inviting to developers, but more importantly, speak up for ways to make Northampton a place where a diverse set of people want to come and live. Our city's been working on using zoning and ordinance to help with affordability, but I feel we need to be flexible as things change and utilize all the tools at our disposal while understanding we might need to adjust things because there just isn't one solution to this housing crisis. Thank you.
So the housing crisis is very real, and it's here in our city, and the only way we can start to make a dent in it is to build more housing. I've been an outspoken supporter about many projects in the city, affordable housing and middle-income housing, and I think that it is important for us all to realize that in order to bring down the costs of housing and bring down the costs of apartment rentals, there just needs to be more options for people in the city for places to live. So I would be very much in support of continuing to look at our zoning to allow more flexibility to make sure that people can build ADUs, duplexes, triplexes. We need to build housing in our city where it makes the most sense. We need to take advantage of the infrastructure that's already there, and we need to make sure our city welcomes as many people as possible.
I feel like developers who seek permits for multi-housing projects, multi-unit housing projects in Northampton should not be just given a green light for such developments without having to include a percentage of affordable and ADA compliant units in their project. I understand that the housing and the development of housing is important, but I feel like we are skewed toward high-end housing and that we are leaving a lot of people behind in terms of housing. I would ensure that builders offer affordable and ADA housing and not just get a free pass to build upscale units that only the wealthy can afford. The protocol seems to be, through planning and zoning boards, to enable developers to come in, like over on Phillips Place and Holly Street, to build a 54-unit, 5-story building in a historic neighborhood over the numerous protests of people in that neighborhood that would have adverse effects. I want to see housing that is affordable for all.
Housing is a huge issue here in Northampton. I'm a renter. I used to own a home, and when I sold it, I could not afford to buy a home, so now I rent here in Northampton. As I talk to fellow renters and we come up against this crisis of having not enough housing, I think we need to be looking into opportunities such as they have done in Holyoke, where we're building rent-to-own units so that folks can actually build equity in their homes when they haven't had that ability before. A lot of folks have been talking to me about Airbnbs and other communities really looking at those types of services that are taking up stocks of housing in their community and really understand the impact that it's having here so that we're opening up new ways of housing if we're not able to build because building costs are so high. So yeah, I think that there are many things that we can do, and we need to be looking at our building codes to ensure that if people want to come in and build affordable housing, that they have the ability to do so in ways that make sense in our community and make sure that our most vulnerable have access to housing.
So there have been some market rate projects that have stalled because of multiple market forces, including material costs, but also interest rates, tariffs, and the general economic instability that we're experiencing right now. And it's actually the subsidized affordable projects that are moving forward consistently. And I'm thrilled that nonprofit developers like Valley CDC, the Community Builders, and Habitat for Humanity are partnering with the city with multiple projects. And while I've been mayor, we have helped facilitate the creation of 282 units of affordable housing. But there is tremendous, tremendous need. Prospect Place on Bridge Road near Jackson Street School is family affordable housing that will be coming online very soon. They had over 3,600 applications for their lottery for 60 units. I am committed to supporting as much affordable housing as our partners can create and to supporting a variety of housing at all levels and for home ownership and rental units to address need and to lower costs. I co-sponsored the council resolution supporting the ability to implement rent stabilization because renters also shouldn't face sudden spikes in their housing that threaten their homes.
Climate change is a crisis that will affect young people greatly in our lifetime. How will you influence Northampton's role in combating climate change, creating a more sustainably aware city?
Leading Northampton's climate work towards our decarbonization goals for your future is one of the things I am absolutely most passionate about. During my first term, we established the Climate Action and Project Administration Department, which has transformed the work of the city. Now, much of our decision-making factors in climate and carbon impacts, and we have already reduced energy use in our school and city buildings by about 20%. We launched Valley Green Energy for competitive electricity rates for residents and better access for renewable energy options. And using federal pandemic relief funds, we created the Climate Change Mitigation Stabilization Fund to support climate-related capital projects. I also implemented a high-efficiency vehicle purchasing policy for the city, and we are sharing a grant-funded energy advocate with 2 neighboring communities to help residents and small businesses with weatherization and energy upgrades. This is something I could talk about all day. I wish I could go on. It's incredibly exciting work that intersects with everything that we do, including the plans that we're working on for here at NHS and the high school to replace the chillers that are at the end of their life with renewable geothermal.
Climate change is a huge thing that folks are talking about as I'm out on doors all summer. To me, this is about removing barriers. I believe that just because we create bike lanes or take away parking spots does not mean that people do not need to use their cars. What we need to be investing in is robust public education so that folks who live here can actually get to their jobs outside of their city and still afford to live here, and that folks who, and we need to create economic opportunities here so that people can actually get the jobs they need to pay their rent here and give up their cars and be able to get to bike and walk to work. I think that it's really, there's so many things that we could do that are different, such as make buses free so that parents don't have to alleviate a cost to drive their children to school. I really think that we really need to make it easy for people to, and I think a lot of people on doors also say, I'll tell you later.
In 2018, Mayor Narkowitz declared the goal of Northampton becoming climate neutral by 2050. I certainly support that. 70% of greenhouse gas emissions come from our buildings, and 26% come from transportation. Although the CAPA director is currently working on efforts to reduce fossil fuel use in the city's municipally owned buildings and building electric infrastructure to support the growing EV vehicles, I think there are additional ways we could support climate change. For example, I would encourage CAPA to increase incentives for solar energy and all-electric housing and EV public transportation as soon as possible to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. One example is the current practice of charging families for school bus service, which means that more families are driving their children to school rather than taking the bus. I would offer free bus services to schools. And Smith's new geothermal project is a good step in the right direction.
So, climate change is real, and we are already experiencing the impacts that it brings. Northampton has always been a leader when it comes to combating climate change. We need to lead the charge now more than ever, as attempts to undo progress that have been made are looming. It would be irresponsible for us to stand still or go backwards. I will work tirelessly to support zoning, policies, and projects that address climate change. The creation of the Climate Action and Project Administration Department is an example of citizen engagement and city government working together to find solutions. By moving to shared vehicles in our municipal fleet, switching to electrical vehicles wherever possible, and retrofitting the HVAC systems in our schools with more efficient technology, the CAPA department is already making a difference. By redesigning our Main Street, we will encourage more people to go downtown on foot, on bicycle, using their mobility devices, and public transportation. Thank you.
I'm going to use this one over here. Thank you. This one hits home to me because I do have children here, and I'm concerned about their future as well as the other generations. As one of the chairs of the Ordinance Review Committee, I brought up reviewing our recycling and compost ordinances, and while it's a nuanced issue, I believe that I'm committed to making sure we have these discussions in our city. I've also begun looking at our lighting ordinances because they not only help to reduce energy, but it supports our wildlife and our mental health, which I think is important. I supported many of the initiatives of this administration, including creating a climate stabilization fund, as well as the creation of that Climate Action and Project Administration Department. And as Benjamin said, it's been really awesome watching the director not only make plans for the ways for Northampton to think towards the future and prepare, but also connect these threads throughout the city and our departments to save money and deal with what we can change now. I truly also believe projects like Picture Main Street will help us prepare for climate change as we focus on pedestrian-friendly spaces, sustainable tree canopies, and other benefits. And I also am committed to considering the impact every project in the city has on our environment.
So I listened to the school committee budget and property meeting the other day, and I heard CAPA Director Wheel talk about a really incredibly well thought through program to do geothermal for the high school. And it's something I didn't think we could ever afford or ever make work, but he had really thought it through about how to make a zero carbon for the high school a zero cost for the city. And that's the direction we need to go in at a time when the federal government is pulling back on funding almost everything, and we're not going to be able to look to the state for the kind of help that we thought we would get. We need to think critically about what we can do on the local level. And your Sunshine Club has done an extraordinary job of thinking through some really amazing potential avenues we could take. Like, I remember them telling me that they wanted to learn how to put solar panels on houses. I thought, we can do that. We can make that happen ourselves and work it through. There are a lot of good ideas. I'll finish by saying simply, I wish we could observe the idling of cars outside school buildings for a starter.
At the League of Women's Voters debate, there did not seem to be a consensus on what Picture Main Street is. Can you explain how you understand this project?
In 2021, we were presented with the choice of one of 3 designs for a project we had never, as constituents, formally approved. 1,200 people responded, but only 62 of them were Northampton residents, and that data was never disaggregated. Major decisions about our city should be made in serious consult with those who live or work here. Saying that we were part of a yes vote on this project is misleading at the best. Refusing to revisit this enormous undertaking in light of public misgivings is a poor approach. As a teacher, I am always suspicious of PR pitches that tell me it will all be fine, but lack credible sources to back it up. Picture Main Street was the brainchild of one person, the same one who brought us the Baptist Church, and our city has ignored the concerns residents and many downtown business owners have raised about it. Why not come back to the table to work with us, do a trial run, and get us all on board on a final design or an alternative outcome?
All right. First, I think there's been a lot of misinformation about Picture Main Street. Not only is this project a rare chance to envision our city for future generations, but it's something that has been discussed and worked on through multiple administrations and has had significant input from our community for over a decade. It's a fact. The redesign is a project mandated by the state, but it's something that our city will benefit from. We have a chance to upgrade our water and sewer infrastructures while the state works on the redesign, which will not only benefit our businesses who suffer each time we have a water or sewer main break, but also improve accessibility for those using mobility devices, upgrading and expanding our sidewalks and accesses to businesses. It'll make our downtown inviting to tourists and citizens who want to enjoy our downtown. This project will help us maintain our status as a destination location in New England, and not every project is perfect, but now is the time to work together, work towards compromise, and make Picture Main Street as successful as possible for all of us.
Hold your applause.
The Picture Main Street project is a much needed and long overdue improvement to a dangerous stretch of road in our downtown. The redesign is a result of years of community engagement, thoughtful planning, and forward thinking that will create a safer, more successful, and more equitable downtown. The redesign will provide more options for people using all forms of mobility, including walking, cycling, public transportation, and automobiles. Misinformation about the project has been running rampant. I've seen it written in letters to the editor, posted on social media, and spoken during public comment at city council meetings. I wasn't happy with the lack of response coming from City Hall to counter the misinformation, so I decided to take my frustration and turn it into positive action. Working with other residents of the city, we started the Yes Picture Main Street campaign. I have led 4 walk and talk events down Main Street to help people get to know the project. I will lead another one on Sunday, October 26th, starting in front of the Forbes Library at 10 a.m. You're all invited.
Well, I am a lawyer, so of course I have to have a demonstrative exhibit. This is a pretty good show of what Picture Main Street is. You'll see that there's a place for the car to park, there's a buffer, there's a bike lane, and there's a little wheelchair person over here that is having a bit of trouble, probably, getting from the car over here or there back. We have obviously a difference of opinion up here on this stage. 2 of us are for further study on Picture Main Street. I favor a trial run, as other cities, Pittsfield and Boston, have done. When they did their trial run, they discovered some problems and had to go back to the drafting board. There are some serious safety issues that have been brought up by Save Paradise, and I only have 10 seconds to go. But we also have a funding issue where the Trump is clawing back any funding related to that doesn't foster car traffic.
This is such a good question, I just want to say to the students in front of me. So many people, I think the difference between what a downtown redesign would be to look at the infrastructure that has deteriorated over these 10 years. We've been waiting for Picture Main Street to happen and actualize itself. and Picture Main Street being the actual plan and project we chose to move forward with as a city, or the administration has chose to move us forward with. I do agree we need a trial run. I think a lot of people are not sure about why we're doing this project. And I think there are some really big questions around this, which are, where is snow going to go, and what are delivery trucks going to do that deliver to our downtown businesses, aside from what people's worry are about downtown businesses being able to make it through this design. I think we need to plan. I think we need to know the answers to these questions so that when we actually decide to move forward, if we decide to move forward, that we're actually ready for it when it's done.
Well, I'm happy to answer one of those questions, which is the impetus for Picture Main Street is safety. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation found that Main Street is in the state's top 5% of crash clusters for pedestrians and bicyclists. The status quo is not acceptable and change is necessary. The redesign will vastly improve safety with clearly marked lanes, dedicated bike lanes, shorter crosswalks, and improved intersections. The design was shaped with an incredible amount of public input and transparency over many years, including 63 publicly posted meetings, many of which happened before I was mayor. And because this project is such a high priority for MassDOT, we're set to receive $26 million in state transportation grants. They don't do that for unproven ideas. These are plans that have been tested and proven to work. And to clear up some confusion, not a single dollar has been clawed back by the state. With this state investment, we have the opportunity to make other exciting improvements that address other downtown challenges around sustainability, accessibility, economic viability, and also infrastructure.
Northampton high school students are able to take certain classes at Smith College without fees. How will you push to hold Smith accountable for more without jeopardizing NHS's partnership?
So this is something I already have a track record of doing. I have maintained a positive relationship with Smith and greatly appreciate the ways that they partner with the city and the community. We are intertwined in many ways with the college, and in addition to educational opportunities they provide our students, there's also a history of them volunteering in our schools and community and helping fund road safety improvements, donating to other city and community initiatives, and other ways that they contribute. And I will always push them to do more. Last year, during the school budget discussions, I met with Smith leadership and secured a $500,000 commitment from them over 2 years. And I will be pushing for more again this year. I'll also continue to advocate for, as I have over the last decade, an annual commitment or payment in lieu of taxes that can be considered recurring and built into our budget long-term as a contribution to city services that we provide the college that Smith's tax-exempt status opts them out of funding. And I also met with Smith recently around issues that renters of their properties are having. So there are many opportunities to engage with them as responsible neighbors, and I will continue to do so.
I think this is really important for our students, and I think it's really important for our community as a whole. I think that relationships are cyclical, and that to continue to work closely with Smith and push for more, we need to also offer opportunities for Smith students to be more involved with what we do here in the schools and throughout downtown and throughout the city as a whole. When working for the Downtown Northampton Association, I work closely with Smith as they were our biggest funder, and they have really switched the way that they are doing things. They really want to invest in projects that are meaningful to them and align with their values. I think when we talk about things like pushing the state to tax them as a college with an endowment over $1 billion, they're not sure where their money is going to go. I think we need to build partnerships to help them really have a say on what they're doing and how projects are looking, and trust that they will do it in a way that aligns with our values as well.
Smith has donated large sums of money over the past few years to the Downtown Northampton Association, which I was a board member of since 2018 until recently, to help with event planning and implementation of events. Recently, Smith was the largest sponsor for the Taste of Northampton. Additionally, Smith's massive geothermal project will help the city reach its climate goals. But could Smith be a better partner for the city, with the city? I would advocate for such increased partnering with Smith if elected as your city councilor. Smith is incredibly well endowed, and I believe that Smith's values and the city's are aligned. The college wants Northampton to thrive for the best interests of their students and families who visit here. I would work with Smith to increase its financial and academic support of our community, emphasizing mutual goals for the economic vitality of Northampton, which also coincides with Smith's popularity in the region.
So I'm going to preface my answer by stressing the importance of building and maintaining good working relationships with all the stakeholders in our community. We need to be able to have difficult conversations in a way that are collaborative and productive. We need these conversations to result in positive outcomes. I know that Smith has invested in the city through many donations over the years. Some have been mentioned on the stage. I want to mention the crosswalks on West Street where safety improvements were made with the rapid flashing beacons. While it's true that Smith College contributes in many ways to our community, it is also true that as a nonprofit, they do not pay property tax on the bulk of their real estate. Asking Smith to help Northampton maintain a stable tax base is a reasonable ask, since they also depend on the city for multiple services. The benefits of Smith College agreeing to a pilot program make it worth pursuing. If Smith committed to making a payment in lieu of taxes to the city, we would be able to include that revenue in our annual budget.
I like you want to keep passing me the mic. Well, like most of the people here on the stage, I also believe in collaborative leadership, and that applies to our stakeholders. I've said for a number of years that I want Smith students and faculty to feel like they're part of this city of Northampton. And I also think that our students and our citizens should feel like they're a part of Smith, and I would never jeopardize your access to those classes and that ability. We have a symbiotic relationship with Smith. They bring in visitors, revenue, and they're one of the largest landowners here. I am eager to engage with Smith to show them all our city has to offer through arts, entertainment, culture, and more, but I'm also not afraid to encourage Smith to continue contributing to make our city better, but find ways to deepen that involvement, increase their contributions, and evolve our relationships. And finally, I'll make sure that we can be honest when either party falls short of those commitments, as we have recently done as we advocated for rent stabilization here in the city of Northampton and beyond.
I don't think you need to be worried about Smith pulling your access to taking classes at the college. They have been a good partner doing that for many years, and I think it would be very, very, very high on their commitment to the community to continue doing that. I do know that Smith uses its interest on its endowment to ensure that students who come to Smith who can't afford it get loan-free educations, and they're very generous with their scholarships. I know that firsthand as a full scholarship student at Smith myself many years ago. I do think we need to change how we approach that. I don't know what the conversations are that the mayor's had with the president, but Support Our Schools has created a research group about studying pilots in other communities, and I would love to see us have a city organization like that that approached the trustees of Smith College to be able to say, here's what other towns are doing. We'd like you to step up and give us recurring revenue we can count on for the schools every single year.
Plan to support and promote small businesses in our community, especially considering Picture Main Street and high rent.
Many business owners in Main Street have already decided to close or move or not extend their leases because of Picture Main Street coming down the pike. We all miss faces. We could reconsider the impact of a 3-year construction as a real cost to our city's viable recurring revenue. We could reconsider the immeasurable harm we will do to our business friends and neighbors still wobbling with paying off loans and second mortgages after COVID. We could pass whoppingly strong vacancy tax legislation that fines building owners for months and years of empty storefronts caused by jacking up rents, as well as a very public registry of who owns those buildings. We could openly come to the people who own and work in our downtown businesses and get their advice and feedback without their fear of retribution. We could rethink the scope of PMS as 1 or non-year project and focus on Main Street and its subterranean infrastructure, its safe sidewalks, and its next 100 years.
Well, as a person who spent most of my life here working in small businesses here in Northampton, this is very important. I've built bonds and relationships with our local business owners and workers. And one thing I've really loved is how our city values collaboration over competition. I've supported movements like Summer on Strong, our new Doozy Doo Parade, and the upcoming Northampton Haunt, which are all initiatives that started as ideas from our businesses and local communities and has been helped by our cities, generating economy and revenue for our businesses. I want to make opening businesses easier, helping businesses get permits and access and secure loans and make our city more inviting for them. After helping open the Iron Horse, I've begun focusing on creating smaller community spaces for our workers, residents, and visitors to enjoy, because a strong infrastructure of successful local businesses is key to the continued vibrancy of Northampton, but requires interaction from our city officials and people like me who live and work in these industries.
I believe the small businesses are the lifeblood of our community. They are what bring people into town. From farm stands in Leeds, to Bird Store in Florence, to the salons on Main Street, to Jim's Variety at the end of Orion Road, our small businesses are the best. I pledge to work with business owners across the city to be sure that they can access all the information and assistance they need to operate successfully. I will ask business owners what can be improved in order to support their business. I will look at city ordinances and see what is holding us back. Food trucks, liquor licenses, and nightlife all need to be considered. People heading into downtown Northampton are going there for the experience. A more pedestrian-friendly Main Street will be good for our businesses. People spending more time downtown results in people spending more money downtown. That'll help pay the rents. I'm a proud volunteer for the Pardon Our Progress campaign, and we're working to promote our small businesses and make it clear that downtown Northampton will be open for business during construction.
As a DNA board member for years, I have heard the concerns of the business community firsthand. The number of vacant storefronts is a huge problem already, and the prediction is that an additional 35% of businesses will fold each year during construction if PMS goes forward. What will our downtown turn into if this happens? A ghost town. The high rents are a factor, certainly by one landlord particularly. That landlord recently got a $3.5 million paycheck from the city for a dilapidated church, which many people feel was way overpaid, and the independent appraisal came in at half of that. So I kind of wonder about the wisdom of going forward with this project, Picture Main Street. If elected, I would engage the council in a comprehensive study of ways to tax vacant storefront owners. I also would include an incentive program called the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program.
Please finish your sentence.
Am I back? So I come from the small business community as well. I ran Sylvester's and Roberto's restaurant, and then I ran a business support organization called the Downtown Northampton Association. Deb and I work together closely. I think what I talk about a lot on this campaign is the need for a dedicated economic development director. There are burdens that our small businesses face right now that are not going to go away with a downtown redesign. I think that looking at these empty storefronts and exploring a vacant storefront tax is an option. I also think that looking at holding landlords accountable to keeping their spaces up so that when new entrepreneurs come in, they don't have to spend $100,000 to get the space up to code before they can move in and then pay rent to a landlord. I think the other thing we can do is a trial run. Business owners are planners. They need to know how they need to shift their operations, what it's going to look like, what their customers are going to need, and to hold a trial run would really give them that opportunity to plan.
So Picture Main Street is support for Northampton small businesses because it's going to make downtown safer, more vibrant, and more inviting for residents and visitors. The challenge for any brick and mortar establishment in today's online economy is getting people off of their couches. And that is going to require outdoor, downtown spaces designed for today and not designed to accommodate horses and buggies. The Pardon Our Progress campaign and committee have been working for over a year to support our businesses now and through construction, and my office has already secured $150,000 in grants to support marketing, communication, and public engagement. This collaboration is working to ensure that everyone knows, as was said, that Main Street will remain open during the construction process, during construction. Regarding commercial rents and storefronts, in my first term, I actually got Northampton into the vacant storefront program, which allows access to state tax credits to incentivize entrepreneurs to come into an empty storefront. And that program has already assisted multiple thriving businesses, and I encourage anyone who's interested to apply.
Multiple groups have raised concerns over L3 Harris's manufacturing in Northampton. How do you plan to address these concerns?
I know and understand why their operations in this city are so upsetting to anyone who opposes the atrocity of war and its weapons. I agree, but as a city government, we cannot force them to leave the property that they own and on which they built their plant. I know that is not a satisfying answer, but I'm not going to pander and lie to you and say that we can do something that we cannot. We have no mechanism to do it, and it would be met with an immediate injunction. I appreciate the people who have consistently been protesting and trying to come up with a path forward, but the suggestions that they've had are not legal. The most recent idea that I've heard is that we cut off their water and sewer service, but they pay water and sewer fees, and we cannot legally terminate their service. So I join you in wanting our world and certainly our beautiful city to be a place that is not involved with the military-industrial complex and its tools, but we are also constrained by law.
So this came up in the last forum as well, and there are many groups that are really concerned about L3 Harris and the work that they do. And I look forward to meeting with those groups. I've heard they actually have real tangible ideas about what we can do about our communities not really enjoying how they move in the world. But I think we really need to talk about zoning when it comes to this. It came to my attention that we actually changed our zoning to bring L3 Harris in. I think we need to be paying attention to how we're moving zoning and how we're making those changes. There are communities such as Burlington, Vermont, that align their zoning rules with their values, and we can do that here in Northampton, and we didn't do it here with L3 Harris, and now we have something on our hands that our community is very uncomfortable with. So I think we should be paying attention much closely to how we move and how we align the businesses we bring in with the values that we hold here in Northampton.
In 2018, Northampton's former mayor signed an executive order that prohibits us from contracting with or investing in companies that are directly involved in the manufacturing or maintenance of nuclear weapons. Now, you've heard the mayor say there's no legal way to get them out of here. But I guess I have some questions. Up until recently, the city of Northampton was giving L3 Harris tax incentives. That doesn't seem like a way to encourage them to leave. Apparently, we are also contracting with them to some extent. That, again, does not encourage them to leave. I understand there are legal ramifications with and impediments to try to eliminate a company that's here. But I also feel like if our values, which were reflected in that 2018 executive order, are going to be upheld, that the city council, all the leaders can come up with something. Like Jillian said, there are many options that we can probably discuss, and I would like to do that.
When the master plan for Village Hill was changed in 2008 to allow Cole Morgan to move from their King Street location to the South Campus, the stage was set for L3 to occupy that site. At the time, I understood the appeal of keeping one of our largest employers in the city. They provided a wide range of employment opportunities for precision machinists, mechanical engineers, and manufacturing professionals. Generations of Northampton residents have worked there. Cole Morgan was the largest industrial taxpayer in the city. Those taxes have gone to support our city services, including our schools. If it were up to me, the South Campus of Village Hill would be a mixed-use neighborhood like the master plan intended. But apparently, it's not up to me. I went to meeting after meeting to encourage the developers to retain some of their original intent of the South Campus, even if the plans were changed. I was told I was too late to the conversation. It was frustrating. I felt unheard. I imagine this is how people who are raising concerns now must feel.
Well, first, I just have to say how much I love Northampton's willingness and consistent ability to protest and utilize our freedom of speech to express our common core values. It's important to recognize we live in a city that embraces that on every level. And I do want folks to know that they are being heard. You know, this is an unfortunate situation, but as been said, the workers at L3 Harris are also a part of our community. They eat, drink, and enjoy what our city has to offer. And while we have little tools to force them to leave, we can at least try and have conversations with the company and their workers. And these are difficult times we live in. I just want to say that I know that I don't support war. I believe our city doesn't support war. And what I think we can really do is begin to unify and try and address such issues on a federal level and take this energy we have to try and bring peace, spread hope.
I grew up as a Quaker. I've been involved in anti-war, anti-nuclear protests since I can remember. I grew up in the Cold War. My kids grew up during nuclear détente. When I first came as a young woman to Northampton and learned about Cole Morgan, which produced periscopes for nuclear submarines, I thought, why are we doing that in this town? When we moved Cole Morgan to Hospital Hill, many of us were horrified that we were begging them to stay. I don't know how many people who work at Cole Morgan still live in Northampton. I don't think that there's any data that tells us how many people contribute to our local economy. And I don't know how we would insist that they leave. As Deb said, we can ask for 13 years of tax abatements back for our schools. That would be a start. We could also ask the state to give us that last little piece of land that still exists near them and create a small community of small houses for our vulnerable members who outgrow our supported schools, who would get on-site care. Thank you.
Okay. Is it on? Can you? Okay, there we go. I know that I told the candidates that we were going to skip questions 8 and 9, but since we have time, we're going to ask question 9. I'm going to give you around 30 seconds, if you could time that, Charlie, to just prepare your answer in case that caused disruption. Thank you. Sorry. Feel free to talk amongst yourself for 30 seconds. Yes, we're going right to 9. We're still skipping 8.
We're going to 9 or 10? 9. All right, Sarah. Okay, hang on. I tucked it away. Yeah, ask the question. Yeah.
Okay, great. I will ask the question. How do you plan on maintaining safe road and sidewalk conditions, particularly in the enforcement of ADA accessibility in our community?
I'm just going to answer it. We need to do a whole lot better. I don't really understand why we haven't in the past, and I don't understand why the DPW doesn't have, we have really great equipment. We spent lots of money on that, but we're really low in terms of the people who can operate it. One of my big concerns is that we started contracting out a lot of the work that we're asking DPW to do. And the contractors have done a good job. Just drive down Market Street, it's fantastic. But I don't know who the contractors are, and I really hope that we're not contracting out to non-union organizations while we're not working out contracts with union-based DPW workers, which would be a priority. We do need to be able to budget well for maintenance and for continuing repairs, and we need to have priorities that come up that are really real for the people who live in this community and not ones that are mid-year gifts to, that were not on the prioritized list at all, to communities or areas that come up in an election year. Thank you.
Thanks, Meg. Well, first off, I have continually voted to give more money to our streets and sidewalks in our capital improvement program every year I've served. I understand that capital improvement is about maintaining the infrastructure that serves and affects each and every person living here in Northampton. And every city and town is struggling to maintain their roads, especially in New England. And we are in a hiring crisis all around in every industry. In my work on the Ordinance Review Committee, we have prioritized accessibility as an issue that needs to be addressed. My successor as Ward 4 Counselor, Counselor Dubs, has worked to bring such issues to light, and we are actively trying to address snow removal, sidewalk clearance, and other issues that affect neighbors of all abilities. And while we often talk about mobility issues, I think it's important to note that we still need to make improvements for those with visual, audio, and sensory impairments, and I'm committed to that work as we continue to build a Northampton that is accessible and inviting to all.
So there's a pressing need to improve the conditions of our roads and sidewalks in the city. These are capital improvement projects that require significant planning and funding. It is imperative that we make our streets and sidewalks safe and accessible to everyone. I have been working with other city residents to advocate for safer streets for all users. We have been listening to residents about their concerns, showing up at relevant city meetings, and speaking up during public comment while building relationships with the planning office and department heads to try to have a seat at the table. And it's working. I think it is fair to say that the separated bike lanes in front of the high school are evidence of the success of this advocacy. We need to prioritize how to keep our sidewalks safe and passable for all users all year round. The ice storm this past winter brought this challenge into clear view. I will work with the appropriate department heads to find ways to clear the snow from the sidewalks, prioritize repairs in the most consequential places, and continue to improve our infrastructure throughout the city.
I would advocate for a different strategy for creating our city budget. That is, funding present-day needs and services first and slowing down the incredible amounts that have been scooped into reserve funds. We have the 8th highest amount in the state of a cash reserve, and that's a lot of money. Too many folks I've talked with when outdoor knocking have expressed concerns about trying to live on a fixed income while they cannot get out of their side streets during the winter. One person told me yesterday that the bike paths, about a half a block from their house, were plowed before their street was plowed, and he could not get out of his street for days. That seems like screwed up priorities to me. What about the folks in wheelchairs not being able to safely traverse sidewalks? As Ben said, yes, the ice storm presented that challenge. Oh my, that was a quick one. All right.
This is the second most important thing that people talk to me about all the time, behind transparency and accountability and the lack thereof here in this administration. I think that we spend a lot of time talking about Picture Main Street. We've had many questions at this forum and the last, and a lot of people live in many other places throughout the city. We have Florence, we have Leeds. I was out in Ward 6 talking to a woman. She had a really beautiful ramp that she built outside, so I was complimenting her on that, and she was sharing that for 2 years. She's been reaching out to her city councilor because her husband is wheelchair bound, and they have a hard time getting out of their street to be out in the sunshine. When we talk about having more accessibility and getting people out and moving, this is where we need to be getting back to basics, where we need to be prioritizing our operational budgets and investing in our people first, and putting our capital project plans second. Thank you.
Northampton has a backlog of deferred maintenance on roads and sidewalks stemming from years of lack of investment and the depletion of our capital stabilization fund back in 2012. The fund was built back up over several years, allowing for more capital investment, which is helping us to address this backlog. Earlier this year, the City Council approved my capital improvement program for FY26, which includes $1 million for sidewalk repaving, a 5-fold increase from the previous 2 years, and $2.75 million for road resurfacing, which is an 83% increase from FY24. Additionally, this year, the state is providing a one-time increase of Chapter 90 funds that we are utilizing. So this year's paving and sidewalk projects are currently underway. Regarding improved wheelchair accessibility, in addition to side street repairs in process, I'll also note that Picture Main Street is going to greatly improve downtown accessibility, and there are going to be opportunities in some cases to make entryways into privately owned buildings accessible for the first time for folks.
All right. What is your stance on budget overrides, and how do you plan to address the citizens' concerns on rising taxes?
So Proposition 2.5 squeezes cities with a cap limiting how much of our property tax can be collected without voter approval. That cap is below the typical rate of inflation, so without periodic voter-approved overrides, services end up having to be cut. Northampton adopted the fiscal stability plan in 2013 to overcome this squeeze without having to ask voters to raise taxes every year, which will make long-range planning budgeting impossible. So how it works is a portion of the override in 2013 was used to create the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund. Most stabilization funds cover one-time costs. This fund helps cover recurring expenses temporarily between overrides. So for as long as we can, we use a portion of an annual surplus to sustain the fund until we need to call for an additional override to replenish the fund and secure more recurring revenue. Because of our fiscal stability plan, we've been able to support Northampton Public Schools with $5 million in stabilization fund transfers over the last 3 fiscal years. But the plan only stays in place as long as voters continue to support periodic overrides. If the next override loses, then we have to cut budgets instead. And what's imperative is that we make decisions with accurate information.
I think we really need to look at the fiscal stability plan and see if it's still working and meeting our needs. I think that's the first thing. I think we also, if overrides are something that we are looking at as a need in this community, that we need to plan for them. I hear that previous administrations have been better planning to help people understand when they are coming and that they are not going year to year wondering if there are going to be cuts or they're going to have jobs. And that is a better way to move so that folks can plan and understand what is ahead of them. And I've talked to so many people who have told me that they have lived here for 30 years and they are about to retire and that they don't think that they can afford to live here because the taxes are so high and they're going to have to sell their homes. I think we really need to be working closely with residents and an economic development director to really understand how to bring tax abatement programs for seniors and people who have lived in this community for so long. They deserve to stay in their houses. Thank you.
I don't like the idea of overrides unless, is this on? Yes. Unless absolutely necessary. As a community, we pay high taxes, as Jillian was just referencing, and many people I've spoken to say, I don't like where my tax dollars are being spent. I don't like the way they're being spent. I think we have an upside-down budgeting problem, and that affects the schools, it affects the budget override possibility. I think we can do better. We can prioritize the operating budget over the capital budget, and the operating funds are for the present-day needs. That's how most cities and towns in the Commonwealth budget. Northampton is an outlier. And you can research this yourself, but by funding ongoing operations first, we will be meeting our residents' present-day needs, whether it be school funding, streets and sidewalks repair, and other essential services. I would advocate an overhaul of the budgeting policies by considering present-day essential services first.
The rising cost of living and the stress it puts on residents is a serious concern of mine. We need to do everything we can to help our residents afford to live in the city. We must manage our budget in a way that is prudent, resourceful, and sustainable. The Fiscal Stability Plan has proven to be an effective tool in providing predictability to our city budget. In these uncertain times, we need to stick to the plan. The Fiscal Stability Plan uses planned overrides and strategic reserves to maintain services while managing long-term stability. This works to keep any override from being too onerous on the community. As a city councilor, I will work to inform residents of programs that are offered to help them out. I will work with residents to help them access all the assistance that is available. I will also work with legislators and state officials to push the state to be more equitable in the distribution of funding resources across the Commonwealth. We deserve our fair share, in Western Massachusetts.
Well, let's be honest. The override is always the elephant in the room here in Massachusetts. Prop 2.5 came around in the 80s, and we all feel its limitations. I often talk about one of the things I love about being counselors. There's 9 of us, and we all have something we bring to the table. Personally, when I look at our challenges, I look at our revenue in the city. If we want to space out our overrides, we need to generate more revenue. We're finally seeing meals, beverage, and hotel tax revenue that's close to pre-pandemic levels. But what my focus has been since I ran for office is addressing the fact our city's only open for a fraction of time it could be. We close up shop around 9 o'clock, and that has a dramatic effect on our revenue. Our city used to be bustling at night, generating income. And that not only affects how well our businesses do, but it also affects how many people want to come live in our city. Without activities to do and entice people to plant their roots here, we're missing out on establishing new generations of residents who will contribute to our community to bring money, ideas, families, and businesses here. The power of the entertainment economy is proven, and I'm uniquely qualified to help strengthen that sector.
We need to change the fiscal stabilization plan. We need to rethink it. We need to think about the interest it generates and how we accommodate essential services first, as Deb mentioned earlier. And we can do that. We can adopt less conservative estimates for total revenue and expenditure streams. We can rethink the plan part which requires overrides. Property taxes are already crippling many of our residents, and they're programmed to regularly rise again and again. Past overrides were billed as for the schools, when in fact, override tax increases go into the general fund to be allocated according to the demands of the fiscal stability plan. NPS schools are only a 35% part of the FY26 general budget. I've been active for many years working with other districts and across the state on school funding and getting council and school committee support for legislation. This stuff matters, but it can't be our only hope.
Okay, and our final question. Is there anything else you would like to expand or add on in closing? Start with
All
you,
right,
Meg.
bear with me, Zara, okay, for a second. I want to tell a story. It's been great talking to you, and I thank you for really what's an historic opportunity to speak with you tonight. You are our rising generation, and it's great to think about what it means to be your city representatives. But remember, I'm a teacher, so bear with me because I'm going to share a little story. Our eldest son, Bart, turned 18 the autumn of his senior year at NHS, right here. He'd been kind of incidentally registered to vote soon after his birthday. Remember who his mother is. That fall was a significant race for our city, our first woman mayoral candidate. The day of the election, Bart and his friends, who were not yet 18, were hanging out in our living room playing guitar and generally doing not much, when one of them remembered that Bart could vote. Bart was pretty comfortable just hanging out in the living room playing his guitar, but his friends dragged him out and watched as he cast his first vote for that woman candidate, and she won. She won by 1 vote. I know many of you can't yet vote on November 4th, but please know that every vote counts, and I hope you'll encourage your friends and your neighbors who, like Bart, are new to city votes, or your parents, to vote for those of us who have stepped up this year across council and school committee to create a new construct of what it means to have participatory democracy in our city. Let's walk the talk.
No applause. Save it for the end. Thank you.
I also, again, want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm running for office again because I still believe that representation matters. Having someone on the council who is a renter, who has children currently in the school system, who works right now in our service and entertainment industries, and is a person of color is important. I have a ground level approach, but a top-down view of how our city works. I have strength in building and bringing together teams to work for a common goal, utilizing the skill sets that are available and the resources we have, even when limited, to create success. I have experience as a city councilor and doing the work. I have dedicated myself to learning what the job actually entails and not just making promises. I've served on a number of committees during my time to learn about what issues affect our city, and I have a track record of working with our department heads, employees, fellow councilors, community members, and City Hall to effectively do my job. And while I often talk about downtown, I want folks to know that I look at the city as a whole, and I want to help to put all these pieces together and make Northampton as beautiful as I know it is and can be.
So first I want to also thank the organizers of this event. It's been fantastic. I'm running because I've seen how necessary it is for City Council to be able to perform its responsibilities with professionalism, integrity, and collegiality. Having the opportunity to meet with the residents and listen to their thoughts and concerns has been the most rewarding part of running for office. One thing that I find so encouraging is that the residents of Northampton are paying attention. At the farmers markets, at neighborhood gatherings, on the streets of downtown, and in the seats of the Miss Florence Diner, I have listened to what they're telling me. People tell me they are excited about the future of our city. People tell me they appreciate the positivity that I bring. People tell me that they have been paying attention. This makes me very happy. I love it when people pay attention. We have work to do. I want to say thank you to everyone who came here tonight. Thank you all for paying attention, and thank you for being engaged. Have a good night.
People are paying attention, and many people are not happy. We've heard just recently up here, and you've heard before, just keep doing the same thing. Stick to the plan. I disagree. I don't think the plan is working. And I think that has been exhibited by many people in this community, and certainly many people I've talked to. The plan isn't meeting the needs of our present day services. And that's why the plan isn't working. We don't have to do it the same way. We have an incredible resource here of intelligent people in our community with expertise. There are many ways to get to the top of a mountain. There is not just one way. And just because we've done it one way, we don't have to keep doing it. I think your chance this election is to vote for the status quo. If you like the plan, stick with the plan and vote for the status quo. If you don't, vote for the change candidates who want to see the budget differently handled and meet your needs. I will bring your voices to the table.
Okay, hold applause. Thank you.
I am here because I want to build a stronger Northampton together. I want to meet people where they are and ensure that the people of this community have their basic needs met, because to me, that is the role of local government. I have been out on doors all summer listening to people about what is working, what is not working, and what they'd like to see from their mayor. What I hear most from the people who live here is, I knew I was going to pay higher taxes here, and I believe it's worth the investment, but right now I don't know where my money is going anymore. They want their roads and sidewalks maintained. They want a mayor that is willing to meet with them and hear their ideas and concerns. They want to know exactly where their tax dollars are being spent. They want to wake up and trust that their mayor has their interests at heart. This is why I am here, and I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 4th. And thank you, everybody, for doing this. You all are amazing, and thank you for being part of the conversation.
Student Union, congrats on a great forum and on doing the impossible, getting people running for office to stick to 1-minute answers for the most part. Engagement like this is exactly why I've supported Vote 16 since the beginning and have repeatedly submitted it as a home rule petition to the state and provided testimony. Our high school students do the work to be informed. They care about our community and how the decisions that are made affect them and everyone else, and they ask tough questions and they expect to be leveled with. So serving Northampton, Florence, and Leeds has been the hardest but also the most beautiful experience of my career. I thank you for this opportunity to talk about this work that I love and feel so privileged to be able to do with all of you. And I ask for your vote on November 4th so we can keep doing it together. Thank you.
All right, bear with us here. We just have a few more. All right, just a few more things. Just want to give thanks where thanks is due. Of course, thank you to all our candidates, City Council, Mayoral, School Committee for coming out here and supporting us while we're doing this. Obviously, thank you to our student union, Zara, everyone on this who's done so much work to make this work out. We want to thank our advisor, obviously. She's been so helpful in everything we're doing, our principal, Northampton Open Media for recording and doing all of this, and our own Northampton's Logan for taking pictures as well. I don't know where he went. Yes, thank you.
I think those will be in the new school newspaper, right? Yeah, and they're here too.
Thank you to our superintendent for showing up and supporting us. And anyone who wants to see the recording of this forum, it'll be open on Northampton Open Media. You can access that afterwards. And please remember to vote on November 4th. Thank you for coming. And lights.